Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to this council meeting. Welcome to all councillors who are here in person and to Councillor Mutton who's attending remotely, and to all those joining us in the public gallery and online. Before we begin, I call on Councillor Spenceley to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor. Acknowledge the land that we meet on today. Camaragal people respect their elders past and present and emerging, and note that, as I always do, we talk a lot about heritage. Heritage goes thousands of years, not just hundreds of years, and there is an incredible amount of heritage in our area that we need to respect and honour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley. We have an application from Councillor Mutton to attend remotely. Do I have moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Lamb? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Welcome, Councillor Mutton. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Nichols.
Yes, item 10.5, pecuniary interest in that, sir. I'll excuse myself.
Thank you. Any others? No. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. And a reminder to councillors, council staff and members of the public, you must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of council, and councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media must leave the chamber to do so. That takes us to confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover? Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Beregi. All those in favour? Declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, we have a number of speakers who have registered on two items. 10.3, the planning proposal and voluntary planning agreement 17 to 25 Falcon Street, Crow's Nest. Mr. Ian Cady will attend remotely. And item 10.4, it's a global event proposal. Two people have registered to speak. Do I have a mover? Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that we open the public forum for item 10.3 and 10.4, so that we can take issues and bring forward.
Seconded by Councillor Gibson. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. So we come to those items brought forward. Item 10.3, planning proposal 9/22 and the voluntary planning agreement 17 to 25 Falcon Street, Crow's Nest. Mr. Cady is not online. Pardon? I think we will. I'll just have a procedural motion and we will move to item 10.4 ahead of item 10.3 to allow Mr. Cady time to join us. Is there a mover? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Gibson. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10.4. There are two speakers registered, Matthew Rule and Gareth Holmes. Mr. Rule, if you would come forward to the chair. Give your name and who you represent.
My name is Matthew Rule. I represent an event called the Beer, Footy and Food Festival. We have been working closely with the North Sydney Bears and obviously talking with council about having this event at North Sydney Oval. Actually, we kind of talked about it a few years ago prior to COVID and again last year. It's been brought up and it's something we're very keen to explore. The event itself has been running for going on 7 years at Henson Park. We partner with another foundation club called Newtown Jets. Wonderful club as well. And what we do is we have a kind of a beer festival on their famous hill there at one of their local home games. Over the years, it's really built to be something quite beloved by not the local community, but the greater footy community in general. Last year, we had just on 11,000 people turn up for the event. And each year since we started, it has continued to grow. What we do, it's called the Beer, Footy and Food Festival, but ultimately what we are trying to do is kind of take everyone back to a bit of yesteryear, before big stadia, before you had to be seated and at the football stadium, etc. And you could go to the footy and have a beer with your friends and family in a more relaxed atmosphere. And we really lean on that nostalgia aspect. When we look at grounds, there's probably two grounds in Sydney which we really love and we want to take this event to. One is Henson because of its amazing hill and its long history, and obviously North Sydney Oval ticks those boxes as well. The event, as I said, isn't just about having a beer festival. It's a really family-friendly event. We promote that heavily. We really enjoy and promote having families there and encourage people to get down there and make it a friends and family football day. We're very proud of the fact over the years we've never had any incidents at this event. It's very well respected within the community and much loved by the local Inner West business community. Winter traditionally is one of their quieter times, and that the craft beer scene in Inner West is quite famous. But not only do they benefit, but the whole community benefits post-event and leading into the event with so many people in the area. So, look, I was here to more answer any questions that people might have. We've put our report together, or Gary's put the report together on our behalf to present to council. So, look, I'm open to questions. If you have any, feel free to ask it.
Councillor Gibson.
I'll get one. Where do I get a ticket? It sounds great.
Well, Oztix will be there. We'll make sure you send me the link so we can get your tickets.
No, all in support.
Are there any other questions of the speaker? Could you turn off your microphone?
I was just going to move it.
Oh, well, there's another speaker.
Oh, I haven't.
Thank you, Mr. Rule.
Good.
Mr. Holmes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Gareth Holmes, CEO of the North Sydney Bears. Matt's covered off on most of the detail that you need to know, and I know there's been a report that's been submitted. So, again, if anyone has any questions, I guess from my standpoint and on behalf of the football club, North Sydney Oval's our home, has been since 1910, and we've worked really hard over the last couple of years, especially post-COVID, to really improve and enhance our game day in terms of engagement, in terms of getting people into the ground. Last season alone, we welcomed over 25,000 people through the gates at our home games, which is probably one of, if not the biggest sport that brings people and community into the Oval. This event is an opportunity to engage even further. The guys, Matt and his crew, do a terrific job in pulling this together, and we see this as a great opportunity for the area, for the community, and to engage other parts of surrounding communities as well, to bring them to the Oval over what will be a great 2 days of football, 6 games, 3 games on each day, with the North Sydney Bears playing on the Saturday afternoon. It's a great opportunity for the area to engage and deliver a major event.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker, Councillor Berry?
What time do you start and what time does it finish?
So first games will kick off at about 11 o'clock, and the last ones will kick off at 5:30. So you're looking at about a 7:30, 8 p.m. finish on the Saturday. It'll be about a 4 p.m. finish, roughly, depending on game times on the Sunday.
And just one follow-up in terms of notifying people how to get here. You'd be aware that very limited parking and lots of work's going on. Would you be recommending people use public transport?
By all means. I mean, we do that already now.
Yeah,
but
but just for
I
just
think you'll just miss the opening.
just miss.
Yeah, I know we were
Say-
sort of hoping on that being opened.
I'm happy to move it, Mayor.
Well, I'll just thank Mr.
Oh,
Holmes for
thank
your
you.
participation. Councillor Gibson moves the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Spenceley. I put the item, all those in
Yeah,
favour.
go the Bears.
That's carried. Councillor Mutton, are you voting for? Yes, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us back to item 10.3, the planning proposal and voluntary planning agreement. Is this to Katie? Mr. Katie, thank you. Welcome. You may address the council. If you identify, you're on mute, so if you could take yourself mute and give your name and who you represent.
Hi, thank you. Ian Cady, Director of Planning at Mecone, representing the proponent for 1725 Falcon Street. This is a matter that I previously addressed council on. We've since had discussions with council officers who have explained the rationale of the proposed 22-metre height limit as recommended to you tonight, and we are comfortable on behalf of the proponent, so we don't need to, unless there's any questions of us, we are happy with the position represented by council officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speakers? No. Is there a mover for the item? Councillor Berrigan moves the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Santa. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you for your participation, Mr. Cady.
Thank you.
That takes us back to the first item, 10.1, matters outstanding. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Berrigan, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2, IPART, terms of reference for the review of the council financial model. Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion which I've just emailed into governance. Oh, thank you, Mayor. It's the recommendation with a few additions. And I'll quickly read it out. The council note the draft terms of reference from IPART. The council make a submission to IPART on a review of the draft terms of reference. The council submission include the attached submission as per our papers with some additions. So in relation to the terms of reference item 1, a new paragraph, that consideration be given to the process of council decision making in relation to large contract approvals to ensure that decisions are transparent and accountable to the community. And in relation to terms of reference item 3, a new paragraph which says North Sydney Council would like to suggest that IPART terms of reference be forward looking and include a comprehensive review of the rating structure based on today's and tomorrow's residential and commercial reality. This could include consideration of a ratings-based system based on usage and or zoning, a contribution from the users of non-rated land to support the cost of the infrastructure and services used by those users, for example, private schools, hospitals and churches, a per student levy paid to councils by the state government to contribute covering the increasing usage of public parks and sporting grounds by local public schools. In relation to terms of reference item 6, a new paragraph that IPART consider when reviewing the oversight provisions for councils when undertaking major capital works projects with forecast expenditure of 25 million to ensure that they are strong, transparent and accountable to the community. These could include the introduction of strict and timely protocols which require a council to hold a preliminary meeting with an expert infrastructure panel to ensure that the proposed project is achievable and reasonable. Council should then be required to lodge regular reports when specific milestones are achieved or when specific measures depart from forecast by a predetermined variation. To ensure the community is kept fully informed and all councillors are kept fully informed, council should also have a standing item on its agenda each month for the life of the project, so as to ensure all councillors have access to the same information.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak to the item.
Thank you.
As noted in the report that we've received from council staff, we have a Exhibit A, which is the North Sydney Pool, which is really an example of how not to run an infrastructure project. And what I'd like to do is to make sure that the what happened with the North Sydney Pool and other projects that have been undertaken by local government doesn't happen again. It's fairly clear from the report, there was one other point that we attach a copy of the report to council dated the council meeting 26th of April 2023, the report into the project review and outcomes, and we attach that for IPART's review because that is a great document for learning.
Second to take that on.
Will you take that on, Councillor Santa? Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. It is a great example of all of the points that should be and issues that should be learned from the running of that project. The other
Point of order, Mayor. We have just.
No, if you just explain your point of order.
If you let me speak, I
Well,
will.
you're meant to
Look at
refer
this
to the
item,
breach
this
of
is-
the code of meeting
Okay,
practice.
well,
So if you could
If you
refer
let me
to an,
speak,
I'll
I'll
refer to
I'll
a
get to it.
provision.
I'll get to it. Mayor later, if you just stop interrupting me. This is about terms of reference for review of council financial model in New South Wales. Councillor Berrigan is turning this into a political speech.
Okay,
I mean, really,
could you take a seat? I'm ruling against
Okay.
you. You could not point to a provision in the code of meeting practice. Please take your seat. I've ruled against you. Councillor Berrigan, you have the floor.
I've
Mayor.
urged Councillor Berrigan
No,
to stop
Councillor-
politicising.
No,
the North Sydney
Councillor
Pool
Gibson, would you
redevelopment
please
area.
retake your seat?
We know it's an
Councillor
election year, but
Gibson,
this is ridiculous.
Councillor Gibson, you are yourself a threat to order in this meeting because you are imputing untrue matters under 1511B. You are Councillor Gibson.
Well, I'm calling a point of order against you. You cannot infer. You cannot infer. You
Councillor
start
Gibson,
off.
I
you
am
start
calling
the
you to
meeting
order
by
under
saying you can't infer
1511.
that councillors
Councillor
or anyone
Gibson,
else is acting improperly.
You
You
should
need
know
to
that
withdraw
when
and apologise, Mayor.
I do not.
Withdraw and apologise, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson,
Withdraw and
you
apologise.
yourself are in breach of clause
Well,
15
you're in breach of the same thing.
and
Just
15
withdraw and apologise.
of the Code of Meeting Practice.
You need to withdraw and apologise.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Beregi. You now have the floor again.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to refer to the council report, page 3 of 5, which actually says, we recommend reviewing the processes used in the calculation of the original budget of the North Sydney Olympic Pool project to identify potential improvements to the quality, transparency and governance required to manage a council's financial performance in relation to its services, especially when conducting.
Sorry, where are you reading from?
Councillor Gibson, will you refrain from interrupting the councillor who has the floor? And she is referring to the report of the item that is currently before us. Thank you, Councillor Beregi, if you would continue.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 3 of 5 of the report, Councillor Gibson, the bottom paragraph over to page 4, which was there. We've had 2 weeks to read this report. So I would, if we could just table the, that report, this one, always good reading. The other issue is that we have an ongoing issue in an area like Sydney, and it won't be unique, where properties are being purchased by private schools or other charitable organisations and we lose a rateable property. The other issue is that the way the rating system has been framed is based on a long time ago. It's based on the backyard, the living that we are not doing. We are now living very densely. And what happens is that the rating structure is really based around land value. And what we maybe should be looking at is usage, so that people actually, now we have more people on a smaller parcel of land, but their usage of council facilities is higher. Now, I'm not suggesting anything, but what my recommendation in the recommendation is to say to IPART, let's look at alternative ways to change the rating structure. We also could have a rating structure that applies to low density housing, to medium density housing, to high rise housing. And we could look at the way that the housing and the density is rather than just the land value. We know that we also have an issue with public schools being overcrowded, and the first thing that goes is their public open space with more buildings. Hence the reliance on other facilities, usually council facilities, to provide somewhere for the kids to play, somewhere for the kids to train, somewhere for the kids to recreate, the children. I have no problem with that, except it puts increased demand on councils' already limited resources, and it means that we are overusing what we have, and this is all money that council has to find from somewhere to support such infrastructure. And we have another report today where we had a proposal for advertising in bus shelters, where we were proposing to raise an extra $2 million, and we're finding that that's not achievable. So I think what we need to say to IPART is that the rating system needs review. It needs fresh eyes in view of the new living arrangements that many, especially urban councils, are looking at. And these are just some suggestions. And I ask you to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
I've put an amendment 30 times. I am going to move the recommendation as printed on 10.2 in front of councillors. The recommendation is printed by staff. Would I have a second to that?
Councillor LaForest.
Thank you. And I
I
will
will speak to the amendment.
I will speak to that. I know this is an election year, councillors, but it's pretty cute turning something like terms of reference for review of council financial model in New South Wales into a political speech.
Okay, I'm just going to call you to order there.
Well, from what I said,
that is mischaracterising what Councillor Beregi has done, and I'd ask that you withdraw and apologise. And if you stick to the point, which is your support for the recommendation.
Well, no, I'm sticking to the point, which I believe the councillors shouldn't be politicising what's happening with the North Sydney pool. Councillor Berry.
Again, I'm going to call you to order because you just repeated the very thing that I called you to order on. You
Okay,
made,
well, I'll refer to a
in-
comment,
imputing an
Councillor Berry.
improper motive.
All right, I'll refer to a comment Councillor Bergy made. Am I allowed to do that?
I would ask you to get on with. your
Okay, well, this
support,
is
speaking in support
what
of
it's
the
about.
recommendation.
This is what it's about, Mayor. Councillor Bergy referred to a matter on the 26th of a report by a now completely discredited company.
Again, I'm going to remind you of the provisions relating to not making defamatory statements in this chamber, councillor Gibson.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll say that I believe that document was flawed from the start because they never interviewed the main participants, players in the pool redevelopment.
Again, I'm going to call you to order. The item before us is the submission to IPART.
Well, that's what I
No,
tried to
you are
point
now
out,
speaking
Councillor Berry.
to, you are now speaking to.
No, I'm talking about the focus on the pool.
Council.
I'm trying to urge councillors to vote for my motion as printed by the staff. The staff print these documents so that politics doesn't enter into it. And all of a sudden now we have this whole thing being politicised. And it's really, our residents have had enough of the politicisation of the pool, Mayor, as you all know. And so I just think we need to vote for the recommendation as it's put there. Let's stop politicising what's happening with the pool, or IPART really, we need to add on to here that IPART should really have a look at this elected council's slowness
Okay.
with dealing with, it's my opinion, Mayor, slowness with dealing with the pool infrastructure project. It was getting further and further behind, costs were blowing out further and further.
Once again,
And
I'm
this
calling
elected
you
council
back to
didn't deal with it
your
till last
item in
October.
support of your
Yeah,
motion.
I'm just speaking why we should actually just support the recommendation as it is and not support Councillor Beregy's highly politicised motion. Let's just deal with what's before us, have confidence in the way our staff present these reports, and just keep the politics out of it. Our community have had enough of these blame games about the pool. And here we have, I just walk into a meeting where, you know, really the pool isn't the focus of the agenda, and it all starts again. It's simply ridiculous. I urge councillors to just show that they're, you know, they don't want to politicise a simple document like this, and just vote for my amendment, which is simply the recommendation which says that council note the draft terms of reference for IPART. The council approve the submission to IPART on the review's draft terms of reference. I urge councillors to vote for the amendment as the paper in front of us states, and just get out of this nasty cycle of trying to politicise every single thing that comes to this council. Our residents.
Councillor Gibson, again, I'm calling you to order for your imputing improper motives to
Wow.
Councillor Beregi. Okay, thank you. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not support Councillor Gibson's amendment. I do support Councillor Beregy's very excellent additions to the original recommendation. Councils across New South Wales are facing financial challenges. The current rate peg system is not keeping up with the rising cost of living, and councils are struggling to maintain essential services. North Sydney Council is also facing its own financial challenges. Following cost blowouts on the North Sydney Olympic Pool project due to the previous council's decision.
Point of
Council
order,
invites
Mayor.
IPART
Mayor,
to
what's point of order? Councillor Walsh is impugning
Sorry,
the previous council. You can't allow that. You must be
No.
fair, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson, I'm ruling against you. It is a fact that the decision on the pool was that of the previous council. Thank you. Councillor Welsh, you have the
Well,
floor.
surprise,
Councillor Gibson,
Councillor Mayor, and
Gibson,
you
again,
promised to
if you would
chair
take-
these meetings.
and I am. Councillor Gibson, would you
shame
please
me.
abide by
Shame
the code of meeting
Don't
practice?
Mayor, I have
And
to
again,
do the same.
You are constantly in breach of the code because when the chair speaks, you are to be silent.
And you are not to impugn other councillors.
Councillor Gibson, thank you. Councillor Welsh, you have the floor.
Decision-making around the North Sydney Olympic Pool project. The information available to council staff, councillors and the community in undertaking this review. It can be a case study in how not to do things. We need a review of the financial model for councils in New South Wales. We need a system that is fair and sustainable and that considers the rising cost of living. The council is calling for IPART to review council's planning and reporting systems. We need to make sure that our budgeting processes are rigorous and that our financial performance is transparent to our communities. I think this is an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Before I give the right of reply to Councillor Berge, I would just like to say that I'm grateful that she has raised the additional matters, particularly those relating to looking more broadly at the rating system. I'll come to you, Councillor Mutton. I can see your hand. Thank you. The rate peg is specifically not included as part of the terms of reference from the Minister to IPART, and in those to have a review of the financial model for councils in New South Wales without having everything on the table, I think is unfortunate. But certainly those matters relating to a more broader look at rating structure really must be supported. And so for those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion and not the amendment. Councillor Mutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a very simple point. In our particular local government area, we have an absurd situation where some people live in apartments, and I'm one of them, where our contribution to council by dint of rates is absurdly low. So we have, with the current system of rating, I think, an extremely unfair way of allocating the costs of council across the beneficiaries of council's expenditures. So where we have a rate system that's based on value, it is totally out of kilter with the people, the numbers of people that are using the council services, and the fact that a significant number of people are making an extraordinarily low contribution. The current rating system is simply wrong. It is producing the wrong results. So to the extent that the motion relates to the rating system, it is extremely important. Confusing it with the pool is perhaps unfortunate. So I will support the amendment because I thought the call to have the whole rate issue addressed by IPART was an incredibly important call, and one that should be seen on its value and not complicated by other issues. So I support Councillor Gibson's amendment. And as I say, I think this is probably one of the most important issues we as a council are going to be dealing with, because it goes to the financial standing of our council, indeed all councils going forward, as we see steady increases of density and populations. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Berge.
Thank you, Mayor. I will just briefly respond, and especially to Councillor Mutton. The raising of the pool was actually raised in the council report at least 3 times. As an example, because the IPART review isn't just about the rating system, it's about how councils can understand and influence financial and budget performance, receiving timely information. These are the words of IPART, not of me. Benefits to moving a dedicated budget or an expenditure review committee are the current budget and financial processes used by council's value for money. So the pool was actually mentioned 3 times by council staff in the report. All I'm saying is that I agree that the pool is a very good document and a very good case study, bearing in mind the cost blowouts and the time blowouts that have eventuated. And we now know from the report that most of this stems from the decision making in the last council.
That councillor, Mayor,
Okay,
Mayor,
councillor
where is
Gibson,
the evidence?
councillor
which
Gibson,
Councillor
again,
Berkey's saying?
if you raise a
Where
point of
is
order,
the evidence?
councillor Gibson, if you raise a point of order, you need to refer to a provision in the code of meeting.
No, I don't.
You do.
No, I do not.
You do.
Okay, well, I'll ask the general manager for assistance there, which I'm allowed to do. If we bring that up. Councillor Bergy is stating things that are just totally blatantly untrue.
Well, I,
Blatantly
councillor
untrue,
Gibson,
and she's trying to defame, those
councillor
councillors
Gibson,
still
you
here.
don't get a chance to speak to your point of order. I understand it and I'm ruling against it. And I'm
Oh,
asking you
well,
to
I'm really
take your seat.
surprised you're ruling it. Have
Again.
you ruled, have you ever ruled in favour of one point of order that I've raised?
Councillor
Mayor?
Gibson, if you would
It
take your
is
seat
just
and
you-
turn off your
Well,
microphone,
you
please.
should ask
Thank you.
councillor Berry to
Councillor
stop
Berry,
being
continue
political
with
and
your
stop
right.
disparaging other
Councillor
councillors.
Gibson, if you would please refrain from speaking.
Is
when
she
the chair
speaking to
is-
the amendment?
No,
Is Councillor Berry speaking to the
Councillor Gibson, Councillor Gibson, I'm going to put the amendment now. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? That is lost. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. We will now move to the next item. And that is item 10.5, amended outdoor dining and goods on footpath policy. Is there a mover? Oh, sorry, there's I'll wait for Councillor Bruce to leave.
Could I ask some questions about this, Mayor, before we put a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Lamb. Councillor Gibson, you have some questions?
Yeah, questions of staff, please.
Direct, succinct and related to the item.
Thank you, Mayor, for pointing that out before I've even spoken. Really, you just discriminate against me at every opportunity, and I've had enough. I've had enough. Just stop singling me out for comments. Just stop singling me out for comments.
Behaviour.
Stop singling me out. Stop singling out me for comments. Stop.
Ever.
You spoke
Whatever
before
I
I
am
said a word.
speaking, you are to be silent.
Mayor,
That
you
is what is
just,
in the
you're
code of
interrupting me.
practice. I am
Can I
not.
ask my
Councillor
question?
Gibson.
I'd like to ask my
Councillor
question,
Gibson,
please.
I'm calling
I'd
you
like-
to order.
Okay, I just
I'm
want to ask
calling
my
you to order,
question.
which requires you to be silent while I am speaking. Thank you. Now I'd ask all councillors, as I do each time with questions, to be direct, succinct and to the item. So now
Only
you have a
ask
question.
me.
No, I
Only
haven't.
ask me. I have every intention of being succinct, but you just
What's
gave a
your
5
question,
minute
please,
speech on it.
councillor?
So this is to the
Gibson.
staff. This report, look, I generally agree with what we're trying to do, but it doesn't really show the different, it's not easy to see where the changes are. Can I speak to get some feedback from the author of the report, or from Gary Parsons? So it's not really obvious where the particular,
Councillor Gibson, if
adjustments
I
are.
may summarise your question, you want to know where are the changes in the policy?
yeah, what are the
that
particular ones?
Set out in the report.
Yep,
Okay.
and then I wanted
Through
to, and
General
then I wanted
Manager.
to ask some other questions.
If you take
on
your
other
seat,
points.
I understand you've got more
Yep.
than one question, if you
Yep.
take a seat. You do it, the director of open space. Esther Parsons.
Through you, Mayor Becker. So the report outline, in the body of the report outlines the changes, but the policy, if you like, isn't marked up with marked up changes.
That would have been, just say it would have been, when I flick through these things, I've got to read every word and then refer to a previous document to try to see what the changes are.
Sure.
So I'm finding it difficult to, it's just it's pretty standard practice, just I think, so you can appreciate that I'm having trouble here.
So do you have another question?
Yeah, I have a few, yeah. So again, I do find it a bit disappointing. Councillors, we look on page 20 of 77. about halfway down where it says generally, 4.1 generally. So the use of A-frames or sandwich boards are not permitted. Advertising, however, may be incorporated onto permitted temporary street furniture as outlined in these guidelines. I think it's a bit of a shame that we haven't thought about.
So again, do you have a question?
Yes, well, why didn't we use this opportunity to have another look at sandwich boards and A-frames, which has been sort of the I guess a contention in the community with small businesses being fined for having A-frames out?
Yeah, I guess what the policy is trying to do is talk about or talk to those items that can be just randomly placed on a footpath, as opposed to advertising or the like that could be affixed to something that is fixed to the outdoor dining area. So that's what it's trying to differentiate in that part of the report.
Do you have another question, Councillor Gibson?
Yes, I do, thanks, Lee. Oh, now if we go to page 18, and look down under 4.9, the clear plastic drop-down screens, I think point 3 could be a bit better if you look at how that's worded. I guess my question is, could we just read how this is worded, and I'm asking this question, and other councillors who are first-term councillors mightn't have had experience here. What we've had is small businesses putting down their screens when they sense inclement weather's coming. They've sensed winds coming, it's about to rain, they've put down their screens, So
is there a question
Yeah,
related to the
What-
item before us, which
Yeah,
is to go on public exhibition and come back to council?
Yes, could we word that better? Because we've had small businesses fined before for putting, I've seen businesses in Kirribilli fined, said put down their screens, and then someone's reported them saying, well, they put down their screens and it isn't raining. And small businesses have been fined on.
Okay, so the question is,
Yeah,
could
we-
that provision be
Yeah,
better worded?
Could we word that better to take into account, so it says here, alcohol use only during inclement weather. Could we suggest a change there that, could you suggest a change there that that might just make it a bit
Councillor
more-
Gibson, the
Yeah.
purpose of this report is to put it on public exhibition for 28 days for the community to make comment. The time to make changes to the final version of the policy would be when the further report comes back to council to take into account community engagement.
Yeah, but we know a lot of our small, Mayor, with all due
But
respect.
what I'm saying is the motion has been moved and it is to go on exhibition and return to
Oh,
us.
well, I'll bring it up then, because our small business owners don't actually have the time to sit around and read the detail on this report. And we have had small businesses,
Thank you. There are
That's-
questions. If there are no other speakers to the item, I will put the item. All those in favour and those against. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. If we could call Councillor Lapouris back into the room. That brings us to 10.6, status update revenue from street furniture. Councillor Berrigan.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Remove the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Sante. Is there any discussion? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's well known. I've got concerns around a lot of increasing advertising in our area, so I can't say I'm displeased by this outcome. I won't go into specifics, obviously, but I know that there are implications financially, but I think overall, if we put our environment first, we'll have less cost in the long run. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Berry, thank you.
Councillor Birch made me laugh, but yes. But what I would like to say is that this is another example of where we need reports that are based in fact. We didn't know that we couldn't get approvals for all of these when this was determined, and that is something that what IPART are looking at in financial decision making. So we have relied on the expectation of $2 million coming in when actually it was never going to happen. And these are the kind of checks and balances that when these reports are put before us, is it actually a viable, feasible way of raising revenue, or should we be looking elsewhere? And the approvals as to where these were going to be put should have been investigated before the report came to council. And so we have gone through all of this and gone through this process basically for nothing. And this goes straight back to the IPART comments where councils need to be making decisions of expenditure and budgets and revenue based on fact and proper expectation that when we budget for something, it's actually going to be deliverable. So I move the motion, and it's another lot of money we have to find.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd really like to echo Councillor Berry's statement. I mean, I was quite surprised to find out that what was presented to us is a fait accompli, really, in terms of financial decisions, and really wasn't feasible, wasn't enough considered as to the risks of achieving that. I also am going to use a double negative. Can't say I'm not displeased. That's a triple negative. I think, having looked back as a newer councillor, from a financial background, I was particularly concerned about the financial metrics, and I don't know that I necessarily put enough focus on the environmental, maybe not so much the environmental messages that Councillor Burke was talking about, but the amenity of our areas, of our bus stops, of our place. And I think over advertising, over digitisation, whether it's regarding consumption or whether it's just regarding the pleasant atmosphere that we create for our ratepayers and people journeying through our suburbs is particularly important. So look, that we have a report that was didn't adequately outline the risks of a $2 million hole, but somewhat pleased that maybe we end up with less advertising and a better balance because of it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. That takes us to the final item on the agenda, 10.7, North Sydney Olympic Pool Redevelopment Project Update. Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Spence, as Councillor Santer. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the item. All those in favour? And those against? Votes against by Councillor Gibson. That brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you all for your participation. Until the meeting on the 20th.
Yeah.